What's happening, everybody? Ryan Thomas here, live on the Thomas Take Sports podcast. And tomorrow, I got not one, but I got two fantasy baseball drafts. One at 6 o'clock, one at 8 o'clock. And of course, I wanted to provide you guys, the viewers and listeners of my podcast, with information that you need to win your fantasy baseball league. I'm in a dynasty/keeper league as well as a redraft league, keeping close attention to the redraft leagues, because the redraft leagues in fantasy baseball are much, much tougher than going into any draft knowing the amount of talent that you're going to have. And, of course, putting together a top 10 list is no easy feat at any point when talking about top players, projections, rankings, whether it's a GOAT list, whether it's a top 10 of current players. It's tough. It's not easy, right? So me putting this list together for the fantasy baseball fanatics out there took me some time. I'm not going to lie to you. I compiled a lot of numbers, really got into the nitty gritty of it. And I got to tell you, this year for fantasy baseball is unlike any other, because we're starting to see this surge of young talents take the game over. Not even just necessarily become superstars, but change the game and how the game is evaluated, analyzed, you name it. And a few of these guys have made this top 10 list. So let's get right to it. This is my top 10 fantasy baseball's best list in 2023. Who are the top players that I believe are the best of the best that fantasy baseball has to offer? Of course, feel free to follow along and fire away your comment section in the comment section below. I know I got a lot of football fans here, and that's all well and great. That's great. But we're closer to baseball season, obviously, than we are football season. So let's get to the list here that I put pen to paper on and, of course, posted on the show. I'm going to go number 10, Manny Machado. And Manny Machado has been a stud since he came into the league. He came into the league with the Orioles. He was traded to the LA Dodgers. Then he was signed to a mega contract with the San Diego Padres, and then re-signed by the San Diego Padres for a massive amount of money. And it was wondered by many of us, myself included, whether Manny Machado would actually be the headline name of the 2024 fantasy draft class. He's 30 years old, born in 92, just like Ryan Thomas, and I know that this guy's only reaching his prime. Furthermore, only reaching his prime when the San Diego Padres, that lineup just continues to get better over the course of the last few years. They're going all in, trying to put forth their best effort towards winning a World Series. That top half of that lineup is like a fantasy team, essentially. Manny Machado, Juan Soto, Fernando Tatis, and my guy, the longtime Boston Red Sox, Xander Bogaerts, signed with the San Diego Padres this past offseason, of course. So the Padres are a sexy new team that have a lot of big-name players, especially in this batting lineup. And Manny Machado, I think, is one of those names that rightfully belongs in this top 10 list. Pass on him at your own risk. It seems as if Manny Machado has been passed on for the last couple years, and yet whoever has drafted him has reaped the reward that someone wishes they would have had. Number 9 is a new name added to this list, and it's a player that I really like, a player that I really enjoyed watching last year. He's an old school, new school player, kind of a throwback to the old days, and doesn't wear the gloves, doesn't wear much protection on the sleeves, on the elbow. The Houston Astros outfielder Kyle Tucker, and for me last year, Kyle Tucker, his statistics should jump out at you. 30 bombs, 107 ribbies, a 257 batting average. You'd like that to be better. Typically, he's a 270 hitter. He was a touch under 260, but key point here in terms of finding categories that most guys can't offer you. Kyle Tucker can offer you home runs, and he can offer you stolen bases. He hit 30 bombs last year. He stole 25 bags. So good for Kyle Tucker on that. He was the only player to really achieve that in both categories last season. And the numbers would actually suggest, despite him having 30 home runs last season, the on-base percentage average was lacking. Could have potentially had better numbers last year had he got on base more than the 257, than the 257 batting average. So Kyle Tucker, I think he's going to burst onto the scene. He's somebody that seems to me like he's just getting warmed up, just getting started, and could be one of those players that could be set for a breakout campaign. Number 8 is LA Dodgers first baseman Freddie Freeman. I never thought I'd say those words. I always thought that Freddie Freeman would be a lifelong Atlanta Brave. Fortunately for Dodger Nation, the Braves made a big mistake letting him go. Should have been a lifer. Shout out to Matt Olson, though. That was a good move for the Braves. Be talking about the Atlanta Braves a lot this baseball season because I do believe that the best team in baseball, top to bottom, probably the best team in terms of depth, and they don't even have Freddie Freeman anymore. So the fact that they lost Freddie Freeman and still remain one of those top teams just goes to show you that Atlanta's really good, but the Dodgers are really good too. That's what makes baseball fun with those two teams in the National League. Of course, you add the Padres in, as I mentioned before. Freddie Freeman is as consistent a first baseman as you will find for your fantasy team in fantasy baseball. Nobody has been more consistent at first base than Freddie Freeman outside of Paul Goldschmidt, who never makes a top 10 list but always finds himself atop the batting average category. And the one question I do have with Freddie Freeman, although I put him in this top 10 category, is the combination of durability and reliability is what put him here. Elite production at the first base position, unrivaled in comparison to anyone else. Durability is key for Freddie Freeman. He's only missed 10 games since the beginning of 2018, finishing among the top 25 hitters each time in that span. More of a contact hitter, you're not going to find Freddie Freeman hitting 40 home runs. But when you're drafting positions for your team, filling the diamond, as I like to call it, Freddie Freeman's one of those guys that he will get you 20 to 25 each and every year in terms of bombs, 90 to 100 ribbies each and every season. Of course, over a 300 batting average, which usually leads to over a 390 on base percentage and over a 500 slugging percentage. So Freddie Freeman has been somebody that I've always liked, always admired, and I have him at number 8 for that reason. Just pure consistency from Freddie Freeman. The next one is another player that'll be wearing Dodger blue, much to my dismay for obvious reasons as a Boston Red Sox fan. The one that got away, Mookie Betts, the guy that should have started and played and finished his career with the Boston Red Sox. He's back for another season with the LA Dodgers, of course. He's going to be playing the rest of his career, more likely than not, in LA with the contract that the Dodgers gave him that the Red Sox would not give him. But Mookie Betts, honestly, Betts had a little bit of a down year last year. This was not the ideal season in 2022 for Mookie Betts. He had some hip problems. He had some injury bug issues that just continued to linger. There was moments where he came back out on the diamond and then he was off the diamond. As quick as you thought he was on the diamond, you realized he wasn't. So Betts being in this top 10 list is just a true testament to, despite the fact that he did miss some time with the hip injury, he finished the season with 35 home runs, over 80 ribbies, 12 stolen bases as well, a 270 batting average. Now, the home runs are there, the ribbies are there, the stolen bases are always in the 15, range, but in comparison to Mookie Betts playing 81 games at Fenway, now playing 81 games at Dodger Stadium, the dimensions and things of those two parks completely different, of course, and the NL more of a breaking ball league rather than a power pitching league like the AL, Mookie Betts was hitting 300, 320, 330 for the Boston Red Sox, just slapping doubles off the monster. That's not necessarily happening anymore with Mookie in LA, and that I think has drastically changed his average, so to speak. But Are we really going to complain about a 270 batting average? That's pretty good, of course, and I still believe that Mookie Betts is one of the best players in baseball and will find himself among that top chart list. Next is Juan Soto, San Diego Padres outfielder Juan Soto. The Padres shook up the baseball world last offseason, or last regular season rather, when they went out and made the move with the Washington Nationals, sending them a bunch of players for the services of Juan Soto. And Juan Soto's career, you look back and you look at, the fact that Juan Soto is still a very young player, finished last season with a abysmal 242 batting average, but the homers 27, the ribbies 62. That's really low for where Juan Soto is batting, fourth, third, possibly even fifth, more likely than not, though, third or fourth. As well, the strikeout rate was, at 96 to 524, pretty low, but obviously his ability to hit into the open field was not there. His 22 season, to be quite frank, was a terrible disappointment. And it's crazy to say that because this guy is so talented that I really feel once he puts it together, he is a generational type talent. He's very young. He's still got plenty of years left in this league. And knowing that the San Diego Padres have the lineup that they have surrounding him, I would assume that Juan Soto is only going to get better and is only going to show us more rather than less. And over the course of this offseason, to go out and get a Xander Bogaerts. We know about the Padres and all the pitching that they have as well. Padres are a sexy pick for the NL champs. Whether they do that or not remains to be seen, but whether they do that or not depends solely, I believe, on how productive and how healthy Juan Soto can be in comparison to Tatis, Bogaerts, and Machado. We know what we're going to get out of Bogaerts and Machado. Those guys have been consistent since day one. They're in their, early 30s. Tatis is coming off this steroid thing, which is very interesting, right? Juan Soto's coming off the most disappointing season of his career, so Juan Soto has to be that median that steps up to the plate, pun intended, and play his game. Play the way that we know he can play. And Juan Soto, number 6 on my top 10 list. Number 5 is one of my favorite players in Major League Baseball today, Vlad Guerrero Jr. Just like his daddy, Vlad Guerrero loves to drive in those runs, loves to drive in the RBIs. The RBI total always at 90 to 100, seemingly every single season. And he had rumors of injury, rumors of being out of shape years back. He changed that and has been one hell of a player for the Toronto Blue Jays. By some estimations, you'd look at his 2022 season, 272 batting average, 32 dingers, 97 RBIs, a 339 on-base percentage. Not a bad season at all. But based on his ADP, his average draft position for fantasy baseball, he was a top 5 pick last season and did not finish in the top 20. So his 50-plus ground ball rate returned and barreled up the ball 16 fewer times despite 8 extra trips to the plate. So what that means is he maintained the contact rate, but just wasn't quite the same. The one thing I'd say is he's entering his prime. This kid is only 24 years old, and he's only going to get better. I do believe, too, I've heard, I don't know the exact numbers, but the Blue Jays shrunk the dimensions of the Rogers Center, which is only going to help him. And I would say that if you're looking at a first-round player, Vlad Guerrero Jr. is one that should deliver. He has the skill set to be that most valuable player pick in the AL, and I think he could easily attain that. All right, number 4. So let's just go through a brief recap here of the top 10 fantasy players for fantasy baseball in 2023. Number 10 is Manny Machado. Number 9 is Kyle Tucker. Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, Juan Soto, and we're picking up where we left off at number 5 with Vlad Guerrero Jr. Next up on the docket is a player that'll be wearing a new jersey in 2023. Gone are the days of Trey Turner playing for the Dodgers. Here are the days of Trey Turner playing for the Philadelphia Phillies. One of my favorite moves of this offseason is for last year's National League champs, the Philadelphia Phillies, to go out and get Trea Turner. We know what this guy is capable of. We know especially what he's capable of playing in a lineup with his former, now current teammate once again as they reunite, Bryce Harper. Bryce is going to miss some time, but Trea Turner could easily be number one on this list. I love Trea Turner. I love what he brings to the table. I've drafted him so many times over the years. Trea Turner is simply fantasy baseball's best multi-category talent. And he's taken his skills to Philadelphia, where he will set the table for a vastly underrated lineup. A lineup that helped propel the Phillies from the NL wildcard round to, as I mentioned, the National League Championship Series, winning that, and ultimately they came up short against the Houston Astros. But what's crazy is, I do believe not only should Trea Turner be potentially number one upon this list, he's one of the most underrated talents in the game. You never really hear about the consistency that he brings to the table in terms of getting on base and finding his way to the home plate once again. You know, starting the at bat at home and ending it at home. And I'm not talking via running, a home run trot. I'm talking about turning a single into a double. And on average, when a slow guy hits a single, Trea Turner is turning it into a double. When a slow guy hits a double, for Trea Turner, it's a triple, potentially an inside the Parker, and potentially a moment where he could steal from second to third. He's just such a savvy base runner that you don't see guys like this anymore. You don't see stolen bases at this rate anymore. Now, in terms of the last 3 seasons straight, Trea Turner is the only player with a combined, on average, 280 batting average, 50-plus home runs, and 50-plus stolen bases. And he blew those 3 thresholds out of the water. When I looked at these numbers, I was astonished. Trea Turner, 316 batting average, 61 home runs, and 71 stolen bases. He's a player you build around in terms of category for category formats, and he's a viable first overall pick in any fantasy baseball draft. Only reason that I have him at number 4 is because there are 3 guys that are just a little bit better in other categories that are very important in fantasy baseball. But if you're looking for the best all-around baseball player for your fantasy baseball team, and you're picking first overall, to me, it's Trea Turner. And I said this last season, and nobody bought into it, but I'm saying it again. If I had the first overall pick in a fantasy draft, I would take Trea Turner, especially in a league where you need those categories. You need those stats. Trea Turner is a stat monster across the board. Average, OBP, homers, stolen bases, especially RBIs. And I think going to Philly, he's actually going to be even better. And we saw how dynamic a talent this kid is playing in the World Baseball Classic for Team USA. All right, so we're going to be getting into the top 3 of the top fantasy baseball players, fantasy baseball's best in 2023. Number 3, the man needs no introduction. He's the king of crash of the New York Yankees. He's Aaron Judge, who put together a historic season that rivals really any single season in Yankee history, in my personal opinion. What Aaron Judge did, putting the team on his back, betting on himself to go out into Yankee Stadium 81 times, and 81 other games at other parks, of course, in terms of 162 games. Aaron Judge was never more reliable, never more durable, and those are the only questions that we've ever had with Aaron Judge, is whether or not he could stay healthy, whether or not he could be out there game in, game out, and I thought he was fantastic last year for the Yankees. Over 150 games played, fresh off this new American League record for home runs. He hit 62, passing Roger Maris. And Judge is truly, in my opinion, only at the height of his at his MLB offensive prowess. This is only the beginning for Aaron Judge. It's only going to get better. I don't think he's going to get any worse, because I think the Yankees are going to manage his workload a little bit better, allowing him to play DH a little bit more, allowing him to not take the field as much, because they recognize just truly how special this guy is. And the one thing I'd say is something that we always talked about and wondered with Judge is that he had a high strikeout rate. This past year it was at 25%, contact was at 70%. So it's the most reasonable rationale, so to speak, for regression that we can't believe in our heart of hearts that Aaron Judge is going to do again what he did last year, right? We'd be crazy to think that Aaron Judge is going to do again what he did last year. He's going to hit 60 plus home runs again. If anybody could do it in Major League Baseball right now, it is Aaron Judge. His swing is tailor-made for a home run. His body, his physique is tailor-made to be a power hitter in terms of how he uppercuts the baseball with his bat. But to me, I do believe we'll see Judge kind of flirt, within that threshold of 45 to 50 home runs, maybe a better average, maybe a better on-base percentage season from Aaron Judge this time around in comparison to last season. And I see Aaron Judge finishing as one of the top players on your fantasy baseball team, if not the top player, one of the top fantasy baseball players all year round. Number 2 is the Cleveland Guardians. Third baseman Jose Ramirez, one of the most phenomenal, I almost said football again, one of the most phenomenal baseball players in the game today. You look at what he has done. There is nobody more complete in the game of baseball than Jose Ramirez. He hits for batting average, he hits for power, he has great speed, and is extremely strong defensively, a dream pick and a genuine candidate to also be the number 1 pick, and certainly one who should go top 3 in all formats, whether it's rotisserie, whether it's you name it. He's the only player in fantasy baseball to go 20 and 20 in each of the last 4 years. 20 bombs, 20 stolen bases, and the only one to hit 125 plus home runs and steal 100 plus in the past 5 years combined. Not to mention only one of 5 with at least 400 apiece of RBIs and runs scored. From a points-based angle, scored the 6th most fantasy points last season, second among hitters. Plus, in the past 5 seasons combined, had the most extra base hits in baseball. That's what you need, extra base hits, placed in the 94th percentile in terms of contact rate as well, with 85% contact rate. Listen, I don't know how to feel about the former Cleveland Indians being now called the Cleveland Guardians. I'm still not really necessarily used to that. I'm not necessarily feeling like that was necessary in terms of even addressing it the way they did. I wanted them to just do it and get it over with. And I like the Guardians jerseys. They're not much different from the Indians, so it really doesn't matter to me. The only reason I say that is because that can be debated. People are debating that still in the city of Cleveland to this day. Should they still be the Indians? Should they be the Guardians? Who cares? One thing we do know with this team is that they have one of the best players in baseball, year in, year out, durable, reliable, and he chose to stay in Cleveland, chose to be a part of the Cleveland Guardians, where most guys in Jose Ramirez's position would have said, I'm cashing out, I'm going to New York, playing for the Yanks, playing for the Mets, playing for the Red Sox, I'm going to the Dodgers, I'm going to the Braves, I'm going wherever they're going to pay me the most goddamn money. And Jose Ramirez said, no, I'll take big money to stay. And he did, but it was less money to stay in Cleveland than what he would have got anywhere else. So power to Jose Ramirez. Good on you, mate. Good on you. All right. Now, this brings us to the number 1 fantasy baseball best of 2023. The best player for your fantasy baseball team. And this is a very interesting number 1. The times we're living in, it shows that baseball is a much different sport today than it's ever been before. And we have one player that is revolutionizing the game in ways that we have never seen, at least in the last 100 years, and that is none other than Shohei Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani is the show of Major League Baseball. Shohei Ohtani is the guy that people are lining up to see in the United States or in the great city of Toronto to just catch a glimpse of him, to just see him pitch, see him hit. The fact that this guy can do both and do both very well is scary. It's downright, frankly, it's an honor for myself to be able to watch a player like this revolutionize, change the game. There is nobody like him, and there might not be anybody like him ever again in terms of baseball. They've tried and they have failed once before, twice before, 3 times before, to think that, oh, this guy was a good pitcher in college. He's a good hitter in the major leagues. Maybe we'll get his pitching back and he'll be okay in the major leagues being a two-way player. Well, Shohei Ohtani came in knowing that he was going to pitch and he was going to hit, and he was going to dice up the people on the mound and leave pitchers wondering what the hell just happened from the batter's box. Shohei Ohtani is the number 1 fantasy player for your fantasy baseball team. And what's so interesting about Shohei Ohtani is that he literally cracked the code of what do these major corporations do that run fantasy baseball, whether it's ESPN, whether it's Yahoo Sports. No matter where you're playing fantasy baseball, each company has had to attack this in a different way. Leagues in Yahoo, you can draft one version of Shohei Ohtani as a batter, and in that same league, you can draft Shohei Ohtani as a pitcher. There's 2 different versions of the same guy because he's so damn good. And in ESPN leagues, they had it last year where you draft Shohei Ohtani and you can choose to start him as a pitcher or a hitter on every given week, which that to me is stupid, because that means there's certain starts that you're not getting out of him and there's certain at-bats that you're not getting out of him. Not cool, ESPN. Change that up, which I think they are this year. It's forced these major companies that partake in fantasy baseball and offering it as a service to the general public to literally change the way they think about their business, to change the way they run their product to the general public. And as far as I'm concerned, the proof is in the pudding. The debate may rage on, but Ohtani is certainly baseball's most versatile player, and also its best, most valuable real game player, as well as fantasy baseball player. And in terms of this, it's justifiable, right? With some of the names that I mentioned, Trey Turner, Jose Ramirez, Aaron Judge, Vlad Jr., you could take any one of those guys ahead of Ohtani, depending on how your league runs. But if your league allows you to start Ohtani as just Shohei Ohtani, whether he's pitching or hitting, like you get his stats as a pitcher and a hitter in the same day if he's pitching and hitting, there is nobody else to take first overall than Shohei Ohtani. And the Shohei Ohtani watch is on because the World Baseball Classic, in case you've been living under a rock, Team Japan beat the United States, proving that Japan has guys that can easily come over to Major League Baseball and say, hey, anything you can do, I can do better. I can do anything better than you. And they'll say, yes, they can, because they've proven it. They beat us. The USA was beaten by Japan. There's a lot of guys on that Japan team outside of Shohei Ohtani that proved their worth, that showed what they're capable of. And, of course, we've had guys over the years come from Japan to Major League Baseball. Have you ever heard of a guy by the name of Ichiro Suzuki? He was so good that they just made him Ichiro. And that was it. That's all that needed to be said. Ichiro. We know what we were getting with that, just like we know what we're getting with Shohei Ohtani. One of the game's biggest blessings since the chase of the long gone summer that was obviously riddled with steroids. Thankfully, times are different now where Shohei Ohtani is just doing his thing with the God-given talent that he was given. My God, is this guy a sensational player to watch. So thankful for the opportunity to get the chance to watch this kid compete. Honestly, the only thing I wish is that he was playing for the Boston Red Sox. Other than that, I'm good. I love watching him play. I feel like he's being wasted in Anaheim or in LA, wherever the hell the Angels are calling themselves now. The LA Angels, wasting Trout, wasting Ohtani. One thing we know for sure, Ohtani will be a free agent next season. And let the derby, the bidding war, begin with Ohtani in a contract year I can only expect Ohtani to be even better in 2023 than what he was in 2022, 2021, or any year prior. I'm Ryan Thomas. Thank you so much for tuning in to my episode of Fantasy Baseball's Best in 2023. Like I said, I got not one, but two fantasy baseball drafts tomorrow. I'm super pumped up for them. I really hope you enjoyed the show. I know I did. Thank you.